Well, thank you all for coming today, and welcome to our presentation. So, the scammer epidemic, it's a problem that affects millions of people each and every year. It affects our family, it affects our friends. A lot of us in the room are probably very, we know what the scammer problem is. It annoys us quite frequently every single day. But what if there was a way that we could combat that? What if there was a way that we could develop a plan to gather actionable intelligence from these scammers so that we could take them down through various means? Well, my name is Joshua Pardhe, and together with my colleagues from Arizona State University, we're here to talk about our capstone research project that addresses this very topic. So thank you all for being here today, and welcome to Hacking Back Scammers.
All right, so up on the screen, we're going to show some statistics from the different types of scams and the financial impacts that it made in Australia last year. Now, as we see, phone scams alone were responsible for a loss of $100 million, which is a very significant amount. As students, our role extends beyond research and focuses on creating methodologies that continuously find actionable intelligence from these scammers. With this research, we're trying to promote awareness in the community about the current scams in circulation. Some of the scams that we've been monitoring are dating, romance, tech support, as well as unexpected refunds. In 2021, 1 in 3 Americans had reported to have fallen a victim of a scam call, making that a total of 59.49 million individuals. The total loss reported was 29.8 billion US dollars, which is not a small amount for the industry. There is a large range of individuals who are unfortunately at a higher risk of falling a victim of fraud, and one of the main factors that relates these different types of scams with individuals is age. We gather that ages 55 and older are falling victims of mainly romance, dating scams, as well as tech support. However, on the other side, the younger people, 18 to 55, are falling victim of maybe employment scams as well as cryptocurrency online scams. Jacob.
So just really quick before we really dig into kind of the details, just as a disclaimer, we are not doing anything illegal, and we do not condone you going out and doing illegal things with scammers. As we mentioned, this is a university capstone project, so we represent Arizona State University, and so we're making sure to not doing anything illegal.
All right, so today, like we said, we are going to be showing you all how we go about completing a successful scam baiting call. Successful here, referring back to that being able to consistently gather actionable intelligence for reports. So to do that, we're going to be walking you through our scam baiting checklist, consisting of how we secure ourselves, how we prepare and plan for a call, and then go about actually making the call. Then we'll be showing a little demonstration and then explaining how everything that we'll be talking about ties together.
Awesome. Perfect. So building a same scam baiting infrastructure is the main and the first step, because we want to make sure we're safe the whole time while interacting with the scammers. The first step, two of the main steps are ensuring a secure and private environment. When it comes to security, the main thing is setting up or creating a stealthy virtual machine, and that is with the benefit of isolation and dynamic configurability. The VM achieves strong isolation by running the processes or restricting the processes so that if they're running inside the VM, even if they're compromised by malware, it will be hard, if not impossible, to compromise the systems running outside of the VM. So for this project, we used 2 different operating systems. We used Kali Linux, where we conducted a lot of the research, did some keylogger development, but as well as clicking on the links that we would get from the scammers most of the time. Then we used a Windows operating system to interact with the scammers. Most of the time, they would ask us to share the screen, and so we want to look not suspicious by using Kali. So we used Windows just to look as a victim. Next, on the privacy section, we used TextNow, which is the VoIP service that we use to make the phone calls, as well as text back and forth with the scammers, as you can see as well from the screenshot. The whole time we were on a VPN, we connected to IP addresses dynamically for each interaction, just to make sure that nothing will tie back to us as individuals. Last but not least, we use Proton Mail as the encrypted mail service to communicate to the scammers, but also we went on scam or very suspicious websites to sign up for their services so that we can become a target for them. Shortly after, as you can see on the screenshot, we started getting flooded with different emails that included some very suspicious links on the body. One of the things also that we did to make sure that we mask our Windows OS to look as a host operating system was changing the configuration files, changing the registry, as well as hiding the VMware tools. Okay.
So now that we're secure, before we can get to the actual scam baiting, we need to do a little bit of goal setting. And everybody's going to have their own independent goals, but the main thing to remember when it comes to scam baiting is that the overall purpose is to waste the scammer's time. And this is important because scamming is really just a game of statistics. Most people aren't going to be falling for scams, so scammers need to call as many people as frequently as possible in order to get money. Meaning the more time of theirs that we can waste, the less time that they're going to have spending with actual victims, and the less money they're actually going to be able to make. So aside from this main goal of scam baiting, everybody's going to have their own independent goal. For example, YouTubers going to want to be making entertaining and comedic content. For us, we're going back to that ability to consistently gather actionable intelligence. And to do this, we need to go about some basic steps. First and foremost, we need to verify it is indeed a scam when we're on the call. For example, if someone reported a legitimate business as a scam, we want to make sure that we're not going about investigating them as they are a legitimate business. Once we've done that, though, we can go about investigating and gathering intelligence. We can do this through a variety of social engineering techniques and tools. One of the ones that we prefer is Grabify IP Logger. For those of you who don't know, Grabify is a website that allows you to take any URL that you want and gives you a redirection link, so that when that link is clicked, before going to the intended URL, it'll first go to Grabify servers and grab any public information about that user, such as their IP address, location, operating system, a whole lot of information that can be used to identify and, with proper authority, hack back a scammer. Then, once we've gathered all this information, we can go about actually making the report. So, how do we actually figure out a scam that we can go about calling in the first place? Well, there's a whole bunch of resources that we can use, and we like to rank them based off of the trustworthiness of how likely this is a legitimate scam that is being posted, as well as the activity level of how frequently these resources use new or post new scams. First and foremost, we have Discord. It's very good for beginners, and it has a really good sense of community. However, due to the terms of service and the fact that anybody can join, most of the time there can't be actual numbers that are posted, and when they are, they're not always the most trustworthy. So another resource that we can use is the scams that you all received yourselves. These tend to be the most trustworthy because you're going to be the best person to ask and know whether or not your car warranty is expired. However, unless you're on some kind of list, likely you're only going to be getting a couple or so a week, which is not enough for a research project of this scale. So another resource is the subreddit r/scam numbers. This one's a step up from Discord because they have moderators that increase that trustworthiness, and you can actually be posting numbers. However, due to how many people are in this subreddit itself, once a number is posted, the scammers tend to be flooded with a whole bunch of calls, realize that they're on a list, and change the number. So we kind of need to act a bit more fast if we're using something from this. This leads us to the resource that we most commonly use, scammer.info. This is our preferred method. It's a forum-based website that is entirely dedicated to scam baiters. And what it does is for every single phone number, it has its own forum post where anybody can respond with any information that they got from their individual contact with that scammer, any other resources that they had, links, all that info in one dedicated place that makes research very, very helpful. So aside from this that we prefer, there is another kind of like top tier resource that we can use, and we're currently in the process of trying to migrate our operations to it. It's called BobRTC. It's really, really cool, and it kind of automates a lot of these previous things that we've been talking about. It gives you a randomized phone number at the beginning of every call. It takes all that information from scammer.info and condenses it to a nice, neat little dashboard per number to give you all that information that you can be recalling. And there's a whole bunch of other cool features that you can unlock the more time that you are scam baiting. So now that we have a goal and a plan, and we know what scam we want to do, the last kind of big step is research. And this tends to be one of the most important but also overlooked steps. These are kind of the things of making sure you know what the scam is actually about. Is it a pop-up scam? Is it an email scam? Is it a phone number? What kind of information do you need to know to actually be in the to be walking the same path as a victim would? What kind of information are these scammers going to be asking for so you know how to prepare it in advance and have it available? And also just being updated with the scam, making sure that this number isn't deactivated so you don't waste your time trying to do all this research. And while it may seem a lot of common sense, it's very easy to overlook some steps, as we did when we were working on this debt forgiveness scam.
Do you have a debt with the IRS or with the state authority?
Yeah, the state.
What state are you talking about?
Oh, it's Texas.
Texas don't have state taxes, sir. Have a nice day.
So as you can see, we said that we owed taxes to the state of Texas, which if we had done our research, we would have found out that in Florida and Texas, you can't actually owe debt to the state itself.
Do you have a
So
debt
it was something
IRS
we missed
or
in our
with the state
preparation
authority?
process.
Yeah,
and as a result,
the
we ended
state.
up wasting our own time
What
instead of
state?
scammers.
But once you have all the research and you're ready to make the call, the final step you want to do is prepare a fake identity, which in my opinion is the most fun step of this entire process. There's a couple things that you have to do that we did when we were preparing for calls, and so we'll walk through each one of those sub-steps. The first one, as we just mentioned, is research the scammer's MO. What are they expecting? What type of victim traditionally falls prey to these scams? So for instance, if it is a relationship scam, generally the victims are going to be a little bit towards their middle, would be more towards their middle age. If it's a cryptocurrency scam, generally these victims are going to be a little bit younger. Once you understand what the scammer is expecting, where they're expecting to find it, we set up honeypots across the web. We have LinkedIn pages of like fake individuals, which we use to get on lists. And like we mentioned earlier, we have a couple, we have emails that we sign up for email lists just so that we can play the part of a traditional victim. Once we have a scam in mind, then we get to decide the gender, age, and location of the person we are trying to imitate. The most important part is making sure that this is a persona that we can actually imitate for like hours on end. So for instance, in my case, I can do a relatively good Southern United States impression, a British impression, or a French impression, struggle a little bit with anything from Asia. So making sure that you're comfortable with impersonating someone for that extended period of time is very important for a scam call. The third thing, which goes a little bit into the psychology of a victim, is defining the background, personality, motivation, and interest for why a victim would even fall prey to these scams. So take, for instance, a debt forgiveness scam. Normally, victims are in a little bit of a tight financial situation, and so they're looking for something that can give them pretty significant financial relief. We want to make sure that we can enter that persona, enter that psychology, so that way we can keep the scammer engaged and really to them feel like a victim that they can probably pull money from. And then finally, a very important part is ensuring all the data that we generate is verifiable. Most of the scammers that run large operations are professionals. They have whole call centers dedicated to scamming people day in and day out. And so if you just generate a random address that doesn't actually show up, if you have a phone number where the area code doesn't exist, it's very easy for people to recognize that you're just wasting their time. They'll hang up, probably add you to a list, and it'll be hard to contact them again. So making sure that anything and everything that you generate related to your persona is verifiable, at least through initial checks, is a pretty important step in the process. And then finally, anything that you do put together for your fake persona, it's very important to make sure that you can access those notes on the call. So what we do is, since we're all together making scam baiting calls, we have a Discord channel that's open, and we have a Google Doc. And so we can share information as we're holding the call. Sometimes the call goes incredibly well. Everything that we had prepared is requested, and so everything moves smoothly. Sometimes the scammer starts getting suspicious, or they just go down a different track, and they start asking for information that we haven't originally planned for. So if we have something that's collaborative, the other team members can quickly put that together, so that persona stays consistent for the couple hours that we were on a call. Over here, you can actually see Jacques Philippe, who is a persona that we created and used for a scam call. This person immigrated from France to Texas, just moved to Texas recently. So we put together an address, we put together a birthday. On the lower side of this chart, you can even see we went into his occupation and physical attributes, making sure that we could really go into the persona about what type of person this victim would play, and making sure that we were sufficiently representing him as best as we possibly could. All the way at the bottom, you can see the browser user agent, which is what scammers saw when they were trying to screen share. Again, it looks just like a Windows computer, although it's Windows with the registry edited on a VM on Kali. And then the most important part over here is the SSN and the 2 bank numbers. The card numbers, if you are generating card numbers, it's very important that they pass the Loon algorithm. The Loon algorithm is it's a straightforward algorithm that banks use just to make sure that a card number is valid. There's a ton of free checkers on the internet and free generators that you can use to generate something that, at least at first glance, looks to be valid. It's a great way to get scammers engaged because they try and plug this in. It doesn't work because there's no bank account behind it, and then you can use that for your own purposes, as you will see later on today. And then the other thing is your social security. It's important to note that social security numbers are modeled very similar to phone numbers. The first 3 digits are area codes. So if we say that Jacques Philippe is from Texas, you want to make sure that the area code 452 is actually an area code for a Texas social security number. And then there's a couple ways you can verify this and make sure that it's not actually active. SSN-VN is one great service. A couple others that you can use to make sure that you're not actually using a real SSN. One important thing to note is, depending on how advanced these scammers are, they can probably check whether or not the person is alive. And so as you can see, that there's no death master file and record for this specific number, which is important because if you're trying to play a person with a social security number who actually died a couple years ago, it runs into a couple of issues with your legitimacy. So with that in mind, if you have all your data, it's all verified, and you're ready to go with the scam call, then you can move on to the next step.
So we've gone through our whole checklist, and now we're actually ready to make the call. And in our opinion, there's kind of two different types of people. A person who receives a phone call from a scammer and just ignores it, blocks the number, doesn't want to deal with it. The other class is someone who's either receiving calls or making them and is just trying to make the scammer angry. Insult them, waste their time, see if you can make funny, inappropriate jokes. We're not doing that. What we want to do is we want to keep them on the call as long as possible. So what we actually do is when we call a scammer, we sit on the phone, and the rest of us are all in the room together. We all work together on calls so that we make sure we get the best intelligence out of the call. And each person is doing different things. So one of the first jobs is making sure that they are taking notes and a transcript of the whole call so that we can, an hour and a half long call, we want to be able to remember the first 5-10 minutes of the call. We also want to, a week later, remember what actually happened in the call so we can learn from mistakes and then, don't repeat those mistakes. The other thing that we're doing in the background is making sure that we're staying consistent to the scam. So we do research on the scam beforehand, but we want to make sure that we're actually still staying consistent. As an example of this, we were talking about a scam that we were going to call, and we told each other that it was going to be an AV scam. AV can be either antivirus or audiovisual. And so the person making the call called them and started talking about audiovisual when the scam was actually about antivirus. The scammer very quickly hung up with us and was very annoyed with us. So we want to make sure that we're staying consistent and we actually are research. So that's that person's job. And the last person is making sure that our persona stays consistent. So we do all kinds of research and we prep our persona beforehand, but once the call starts, maybe the scammer asks for some more information that we didn't think about or we don't have prepared. So that person needs to be in charge of generating that information on the fly, but that information also needs to stay consistent with the rest of our information already generated, otherwise it's going to throw up some red flags for the scammer. And kind of the last thing is keeping that scammer on the call. One thing that we found is laughter, making them have a good time. If when you're on a call and you're laughing, you're not thinking about, oh my God, the clock says an hour and a half, right? They're not thinking about that. So that's what we're trying to do. So now we're going to play a quick case study of us on a call with a scammer. In this call, it's about an hour and a half in, and what we're doing that hour and a half is we're working with them. They're trying to set up Amazon Video for us. And ultimately, we're going to try and get them to click on a link that will redirect to a website and collect some information from them.
So it will cost you around $249.99 for 1 year.
$240 for
Unlimited
1
device
year?
login. Yeah, with unlimited device login. So it will cost you around $249.99 for 1 year. Thanks for being hold, sir. I really
$240 for 1
device
year?
login. Yeah, with unlimited device login. Activating it,
Okay, how do I make that payment?
Thanks for being hold, sir. I really appreciate your time and patience. Your card number is 53687. Yes, sir. I was activating it here. I was completing a billing statement here, but it's showing me an error.
That's my card
Please
number.
confirm the details again, sir. Your card number is 5368759 08061729.
Okay, thank you so much. Yep, yeah, that's my card number.
Hi, sir, this is James calling from the billing department.
Okay, allow me a moment. Our billing team will connect with you. They'll take out the
Right,
link
so now
and
comes the
everything.
payment part. So,
Tell
we
them
try
the
to
whole
process the
issue,
payment
okay?
with the
They'll
card
connect you within the
details
next
you gave us,
5 minutes, okay?
But
Okay,
somehow
thank you so
it's
much.
declined. So, did you like?
Hi, sir, this is James calling from the billing department of Fugu. How are you doing today?
The payment, sir?
Right, so now comes the payment part. So we tried to process the payment with the card details you gave us, sir, but somehow it's getting declined. So did you receive any notification from your bank to approve the payment, sir? So what do you want from my side?
My bank portal gives me a link. Let me, I can spell out the link for you.
Yeah, it took me to a dating website.
It's HTTPS.
Let me try and
So
enter it.
what was that website we
So the
actually
link did
directed them
not
to?
work. It took me to
So
A
from
bad
this, we
website,
were
I could
actually able
say.
to get some really good
Yeah, it
information
took me
from
to
this
a dating
scammer.
website,
And
so.
actually, even after he clicked on this link and we gave him this bogus link, he stayed on the call with us for another 30 minutes, still trying to scam us. And so the key was, being enough of a honeypot that they wanted to scam us, but not being so gullible and so innocent that it's kind of suspicious.
And because we had that goal from the very beginning and had a plan in place to actually make it happen, we were able to, like we said, gather this information that we can see right there, actionable intelligence that we can use to make a report and submit to the proper authorities.
And as part of that plan, since we had that credit card number that we generated, that at least on first inspection looks valid, looks like a normal Visa card, but when you plug it in, there's no bank account, we were able to get that scammer to ask us for a verification link, which redirected it to a dating website, I should say. I've watched that speech way too many times. Redirected to a dating website, but in the same process gave us all this information like their IP address and other details that we then followed up with trying to access their systems.
All right, and also because of the initial environment setup that we had, we were completely safe in terms of privacy and security, staying on VPN inside that virtual machine. So by the end of the phone call, we could stay with them as long as we wanted to, or share our screen with them if required, to see what they try to get from our computers, what they try to execute or steal from them as well, without fearing that we're going to get exposed. And that is a wrap. Thank you everyone for being here. I hope you enjoyed our talk. If you have any questions, we are here to answer them.
Nice throw. That's awesome, guys. Great job. So how do you report the scammers? What agencies do you report to, and how do you report them?
Yeah, so it all depends on the type of scam and what specific information we get. So for example, if we get a website, we try to do some reverse domain searching, try to get any information we can out of that. And one of the first things we do there is report it to that domain actual service to say, hey, someone is abusing your product, you need to deal with it. Instagram ones will report to Instagram that it's a scam. With something like the information that we gathered here, that would be reporting more to the FBI Cybercrimes Unit, since they have a division for scamming. So it all kind of depends on what specific information we gather and who we think is going to be the best person to receive it and act on it.
Thank you. And then follow up, how many did you report throughout your project?
Yeah, so we're still in the process of reporting a lot of them.
Yep.
The biggest ones I think so far, we've gotten 2 big Instagram crypto ads that we've reported, and with those, they've actually stolen other people's identities, so we've also reported it to those individuals. And then we've gotten some domain ones that we've submitted to the domains, and one big one to the Cybercrimes Unit.
Awesome. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Can this work? Yeah. So as scam baiting becomes more popular, I mean, you guys mentioned it, it's on YouTube, and we're getting presentations here at CactusCon about it. You guys get actionable information using a Grabify link, is that right? During your time scam baiting, are you coming across scammers who are becoming more aware of methods like that? Like when you gave them HTTPS, :// whatever, are they seeing that and then knowing that you have wasted 3 hours of their life?
We're definitely finding that there are a lot of scammers who are realizing very quick, especially as I was saying, if we are too eager and we're like, here's my credit card, they immediately are like, we didn't do any work, and they're a little suspicious of that. Ironically, the link wasn't suspicious for like anyone we talked to, which was really interesting. I don't think it's something that a lot of people do, is try and tell them a link. And basically, we spent a lot of time telling them how our bank had 2-factor authorization that required them to click on the link, and they really wanted our money. So,
thank you.
I think.
Hello. As you were going through and collecting data from these different sources, specifically through the phone and then having them click the link, did you see any patterns with types of scams to different world regions? Take that.
Yeah, I'm going to be fully honest. We haven't yet done a location analysis too much in detail with IP addresses. But what we did find is a lot of scammers generally have a very similar mode of operation. They generally first want to make sure that you are an actual victim, which is why the persona becomes so important. As we were just talking earlier, there are a lot of people who are scam baiting these days. And so trying to make sure that you are as believable as possible, everything that they're asking for, even if it's a little bit out of the ordinary, is like instantly provided to them and it all matches up. That has been the most important part that we've found to be what scammers are looking for. And then also just throughout the process, making sure that if they have information about why we're giving them a link, it looks pretty believable. So for instance, in this case study that we showed, the link was rb.gy / a couple characters after that. So we just said it was from our bank, royalbank.gy. And so just making it as believable as possible has been the most effective thing. But looking at location will be something that we can take a look at in the future as well.
You guys are all ASU students. Besides wasting the time of the scam baiters, what was your ultimate goal to prove with this study?
So one of the main goals is increasing awareness of the different scam types that are going on and the different trends that we're seeing. So before, it was mainly the older people, 55 and older, being victims of tech support scams because they're not tech savvy enough. But nowadays, nobody's safe pretty much, because we're seeing younger people getting phone scams on different things like car extended warranty or employment or phishing emails. So it's basically just spreading awareness as much as we can around, not only in communities like CactusCon, where professionals like us can start doing something like this, and the more of us there is, the more we can achieve a goal, but also going to different audiences and letting them know of what's going on
Yeah, I
with
was
the
about
scams.
to ask that. Do you plan on releasing it out in the papers, your studies?
It's definitely on the roadmap. As of right now, we still haven't started that, but it's something that we plan on doing. We also have a website where we're going to keep writing blogs and updating on more scam baiting phone calls that we do.
We have time for one quick question.
I just wanted to ask, how much are you seeing the scammers trying to obfuscate their infrastructure? Are they doing anything to cover their tracks? Given that they're doing something illegal, you would think that they'd be at least making the attempt to not be easy to catch.
So that last link, and I'll actually go back to it. This particular scammer, their IP address was a Midwest IP address. So they were definitely using a VPN to hide themselves. But it's interesting, you can look at the timestamp, and it shows their timestamp is India time. So they are definitely in India, and they just didn't hide everything. So they're definitely trying, but they're not necessarily doing a good job. And that's all we have time for, so thank you very much.